Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 3 of Becoming Legend.
Yep, welcome back.
Yeah,
Welcome back. Your favorite place for lore on the internet.
absolutely. For Destiny 2 lore, for Fallen lore, for Darkness lore. So, if you were around for the last episode, we were giving a quick summary of the race of the Fallen. I really wanted to just pick up immediately on that and go into the next segment, the next evolution that the Fallen discovered, and you could say it was one of their first introductions to how the darkness can be used, and that is the Scorn. The Scorn are a you could say a sub race or a sect of a race of fallen, and actually they're fallen zombies. They're space fallen zombies. If you want to sum it up pretty well.
They
Um,
are fallen-ish. Like technically they're fallen, but they're not because of the experimentation that the Fnatic has done.
Correct.
It's weird. It's weird. I don't know how to describe them. They're Scorn.
Yeah, darkness enhanced, dead fallen evolutions. Um, that was very interesting. There was a very short period of time while the Scorn were prevalent. I mean, they're still around, but not really in the story. And that was in the Forsaken DLC. The Scorn were created by Prince Uldren Sov, which we're going to definitely give a deep history of him and his history, and that's going to be perhaps episode 4. Uldren Sov infused Uldren Sov revived Fikrul the Fanatic and infused Ether with Darkness Essence. And as y'all remember from the previous episode, Ether is the life source of the Fallen. This is what they use to survive, to grow, to prosper. So when you infuse that with Darkness powers, you get these. I don't know how to describe them. These growths, these. They're just nasty. They're just
Yeah.
nasty.
I'm like, I mean, do you describe them as gross? I'd say they're gross. Right? Yeah. No, it's always weird trying to describe the everything that happens as a result of the fanatic and everything that he's been doing.
Right.
Because ultimately it's experimentation. It is like the goal of there's a very interesting book, and I unfortunately like I read it for another topic of this episode, but I didn't read as much into it as I wanted to. So I welcome anybody else to read this. It is the book of Stolen Intelligence, specifically Outliers. And they talk about the Fnatic. And one of the big things about the Fnatic is that he is trying to build off of what we were talking about with the Fallen, the last episode. He is just trying to find a way to break the Fallen's addiction or reliance on ether by finding something else to supplement that. And that's just where he is very interesting because it's experimentation. That's ultimately what he's doing to everybody that falls in his house. You know, a house of scorn is just nothing but people that have been experimented on. And it's sad.
Yeah, that's exactly that. And so with the Scorn and one of the members of the Scorn that I actually wanted to discuss briefly is Hiraks the Mind Bender. What I've really found interesting about him is he's really the first instance we see of Fallen and Hive cultures and technologies infusing into one. Especially as a player, whenever I first kind of discovered him and what he's capable of, my mind was blown away. Because this is the first time you see that the Fallen are capable of creating their own ascendant worlds. The ascendant world idea is for Hive hierarchy and Hive gods. They cannot be killed in our physical world. They have to be killed in another dimension, and that protects their soul. And as long as they are safe in that dimension, they can always be resurrected no matter what. So this is the very first time you see a fallen captain capable of wielding this power. That's absolutely terrifying to me. Not only that, he was able to mind bend several other Hive with him in and on the Brood Queen, and he's just really able to create his own army and grow. It's just nasty.
No, it's definitely cool because again, that is one of the things that we know about, thanks to our dealings with Crota, thanks to our dealings with Oryx, thanks to what will inevitably be our battle with Savathun. Like the Ascendant realm is very important because essentially you never die. You can continue to learn. You can continue to die and come back to life and learn from those past lessons in order to take those forward into a future battle with you, and that you may prevail. And so Fallen being able to do that is just very interesting as well, because we have obviously a very dark history with Fallen. They've been trying to beat us to try and claim their place as being the Traveler's Chosen again. And so what better way to become a Traveler's Chosen than to continue to fight against the Guardians and the Light in order to learn more of their weaknesses and then come back from the Ascendant realm and essentially rinse, repeat, try to find a weakness, try to find a way that you can defeat the Guardians and maybe earn that favor again, you know? It's weird.
It is awesome. Weird. It's also, I'm pretty sure that the current leader of House Salvation, Aramis, was aware of Hiraks and aware of this possibility to use the darkness.
Think she was.
So
I think she was. I saw a couple of things in the lore when I was looking up Aramis. So.
Mm-hmm. It's just very interesting in this. Oh, it's no problem at all. It's very interesting that in this very short amount of time, just 2 years since Forsaken, once we're introduced to the Scorn, that you start to see that the Fallen are still trying to evolve themselves with the darkness and be able to fully harness its power in a way that will make them more capable than previous wielders such as Hiraks. Sure, he was onto something, but in the end, he was destroyed by the Guardians.
Yeah, ultimately, that's inevitably what happens is people face the Guardians and they lose.
Mm-hmm.
So there go the best laid plans.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But now you're starting to see, I think they're really starting to form the dark fallen versions of their previous fallen Guardian selves.
Yeah, I think there's starting to be, because that was also the benefit of the darkness for Aramis and House Salvation,
mm-hmm.
is the idea that you can wield the darkness, and similar to how ghosts are able to resurrect their guardians after death, like the Fallen very much believe that the darkness is going to lead them to be able to resurrect the dead. What are we going to do?
Endless battle of resurrection.
Yeah, like, if everyone can revive themselves, then it's all about final death.
Mm-hmm.
And what's very interesting is that the Guardians are very weak to this. Like, once the Guardians lose their ghost, your next death is your final death. That's why the events that take place at the beginning of the season with, and this is not spoilers because we've waited a month,
mm-hmm.
The events that take place with Sagira and with Osiris are so meaningful. The fact that she willingly exploded herself to allow Osiris to get away with his life. This is his last life. He is not able to be resurrected anymore. The darkness, I have not seen a physical manifestation of the darkness that appears when resurrecting people that would, that we would be able to destroy and be like, oh, okay, well, like, that's destroyed. The darkness can't bring them back.
Right.
And I think that's another reason why they're just very interested in the darkness, is that it from outward appearances, it does not have the same weaknesses that we experience with the light.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Wow. I hadn't really thought about that. Our ghost technically is our guardian's biggest weakness.
Yeah.
At some point, your ghost is going to have to come out to res you, and that's whenever it's over. If something, we've seen it with Cade 6. We've seen it, now with Osiris, that unfortunately the ghost can be seen as our target, as our precision point, where the darkness doesn't necessarily have that issue, or the darkness has learned to manifest its weakness in another dimension. I think it's going to go something more like that, as we've seen with the ascendant planes that the Hive are able to to wield. Maybe there is something physical that is being able to grant these powers, but not necessarily in our reality. I guess we'll see what the Nine have to say about that.
Yeah, I mean the Nine are very important, especially the rumors as we have gone to Europa. There's been some that believes that the Nine originate from Europa. It's either Europa or Titan, and Titan's gone. So I have a strong feeling that we're going to learn more about the Nine over the next year because the Nine have some sort of tie to Europa itself. Fingers crossed. I've wanted to learn more about them for a while now.
Oh yes, absolutely.
I know you have too.
Yes, no, I need everything, all the lore I can about the Nine. There's some really good stories, y'all, that we're gonna talk about. Not this episode, but whenever we do a specific Nine episode, I really want to discuss the space portal they have on the edge of our solar system. But I'm just gonna leave that as a teaser. In the meantime, going back to the Dark Council for House of Salvation, there was one member in particular that I wanted to at least give a highlight, and that is Praxis the Technocrat.
Yes.
Praxis the Technocrat really is one of the main reasons that House Salvation is able to wield the darkness at all in a way that, like we said, is cleaner and more sufficient and easier to control than previous fallen wielders have experienced.
Yeah, Praxis is also very interesting because like Praxis is he's the only male in Aramis's Dark Council. So that says something. When you read the lore, it's predominantly featured in the lore book, the one Ship Stealer. Aramis and Praxis met while Aramis was imprisoned in the Prison of Elders, and he had the cell next to her. And he would talk about all the machines that he wanted to make and all how he, in a very Gaul-like fashion, wanted to bind the Traveler with like an arc wire and bend it to his will, a la Gaul, and what Gaul did. So he is incredibly smart, and up until the player Guardian, killed him, he was also trying to reverse engineer the Vex so that he can, take Vex parts and build them into new weapons that the Fallen can take. He's the shit. Technically, all of the Dark Council is the stuff, though. Like they're kind of badass.
Absolutely.
If we're being honest, Like for those that don't know, the entire Dark Council is Aramis, who is the leader, the Kell of House Salvation. You have Praxis, the Technocrat. You have Atrax, the Wild Card, which we can talk about her later. Then we have Phylax, who is the Warrior, and Critis, who is the Priestess. And each one of those little things is like a short little description about who they are as people. We get to learn a little bit about them, like a tiny bit before we kill them, unfortunately. For example, we learned that Phylax and Critis and Aramis were all like a fire team of sorts. They were a team of 3 that would travel around the Cosmodrome, and they were all present and fighting together at the Battle of Twilight Gap. Phylax is famous for causing a number of final deaths that we talked about with the killing of the ghosts. Like Phylax is famous for causing a number of final deaths of Guardians at Twilight Gap. And it's very interesting, because some of these things are also the downfall. Like Phylax, because she became famous amongst the Fallen for causing Guardian, like she thinks very highly of herself. And so if you remember from the missions, once you're done doing everything, she kind of like taunts you openly into fighting her because she believes that she's stronger than you, and you just wipe her out. It's just it's a lot, dude. It's fun. They've given us a lot of good lore for this, especially because this is stuff that's starting to finally pay off. One of the hardest things about Destiny, as someone who loves the lore, and I'm sure you can agree with me on this one, Craig. Destiny was such a wide world once we were first introduced to it, and as Destiny went into the Taken King and into Rise of Iron and even into Destiny 2, they were not just building the game that we were experiencing, but building out a large amount of lore around the game itself. with grimoire cards and with all of these, like every piece of armor that you pick up has lore entries and weapons have lore entries, and it's just a lot of lore. And at the beginning, it was just kind of hard because you never knew where they were going to go. They would introduce all of these new things, and then they would go to something completely different, talk about that, and then go to something completely different, talk about that. And this is finally a point where we're starting to see some of those sides start to come back together in meaningful ways. Aramis again was first mentioned in the Season of the Drifter. We find out about her because there's a book entry called Outliers, again from Stolen Intelligence. She's described as being a House Devil's Baroness who was incarcerated during the Wolf Wars. She successfully fled the Prison of Elders, orchestrated by Hiraks. She is a classical fallen pirate of the old ways, vicious, uncompromising, and possessing cunning of the highest degree. Field reports indicate that she was rallying violent descendants to reconstruct House Devils from the ground up. And the person who had wrote that report also believed, and this is why Aramis is very big, they also believed that Aramis was the most likely candidate to cause a reunification of the Fallen, to, fight against the Vanguard and against the Traveler. And it was actually recommended, like highly recommended from the person who filed this report, that Guardians aggressively pursue her destruction because of the influence that she was beginning to wield, even as someone who, former House of Devils. For those of you that don't know the story of Aramis, she, again, was former House Devils. She was incarcerated and placed into the Prison of Elders after she was broken out by Varix and the, letting out the Scorn and letting out Uldren Sov. She showed up first in the game in the 0 Hour mission, which was a special mission that was dropped in season, like late Season of the Drifter, like middle, like
yeah, towards the end, about 3/4, last couple weeks.
Yeah, where 0 Hour, we teamed up with Mithrax to go to the old broken tower and receive it was called Outbreak Prime and is now called Outbreak Perfected. It was a Destiny 1 weapon that was introduced in Rise of Iron with Siva, which is a whole thing that we can go down on a different day because I can't dive into Siva right now. But so Aramis, when she was trying to rebuild the House of Devils, she went and tried to steal Outbreak Perfected so that she can have Siva technology. And as a result of that failure, she abandoned her quest to rebuild House Devils and then started building what we know of today as House Salvation. And it's weird because it's not just the Vanguard that believes that. When she was in the Prison of Elders, like Varix, who towards the later end of his life really started, or towards the later end of how we've come to know him, he really became focused on the prophecy of the Kell of Kells, the leader who would reunify all of the Fallen. And he approached her in the Prison of Elders and kind of talked about how he was going to be bringing about change and how he would lead, but he would need a leader, and he was talking to her. So is she the one that was going to reunify the Fallen? Later, he gets kidnapped. Doesn't work out for him very well. But it's very interesting. She goes to, after the failure of getting Siva and trying to wield that again, she starts having nightmares. Like, specifically says that she starts having nightmares about twisted events of the Battle of Twilight Gap, where people that she fought with were killed by a gunslinger guardian. But that's not how it happened. But because of all of that, she went to the moon, and when she was at the moon, she discovered the pyramid ship that was lying dormant there. And it actually, like, it spoke to Aramis and told her that, she needed to be her own salvation, but it wouldn't help her there, and sent her to Europa. And it was like, hey, this is where Europa is. So she went there, obviously, went with the technocrat who was able to help wield the darkness powers that we know of as stasis, was able to help harness that into a way that she can pass that out to her Fallen, because that was one of the biggest things when she was pumping herself up as accepting the darkness and doing all of this, she was promising all of the fallen that not only would she benefit from the darkness, but that she would bestow that power onto anybody that chose to rally themselves to her banners. Sorry, Barb there. But yeah, Aramis is super cool because she has the ability to unite everybody, but it's also kind of crappy because the people that she chose to, help her sucked.
Yeah.
The one that was interesting for me was Atrax though, because Atrax is technically of the four that are the lower council. Atrax is the youngest. She is the only person on the council who was born after the events of Whirlwind. So she admits she has no idea what life was like for the Elixni before collapse. She only knows about it after. And so as a result, she has no ties to the light. She is not tied to the Traveler at all. And she's also incredibly intelligent because, and this is a small raid spoiler, so forgive me, but after we kill Praxis, she continues to study the Exos and the Vex in the way that he does. And it leads to her being ordered by Aramis to go down into the Deepstone Crypt and prepare the bodies, which ultimately is her. She kind of uploads her consciousness to the Deepstone Crypt and then puts herself. She becomes known as Atrax 1. She becomes an Exo. She is the first Fallen to become an Exo, and she splits her personality into a bunch of different Exos, which she then uses in the Braytech stuff to resurrect Tannix. What was his? Tannix the Scarred? No.
Tannix the Scarred was one of his original names.
Yeah.
Then we knew him as Tannix Perfected when he was revived with Siva. Then through Beyond Light, he came back as Tannix. I know Abomination is his final form. Tannix. I believe Tannix the Abomination.
I think that's right. That sounds right to me. We fought him like 4 times.
He just keeps coming back. He's just another example of how the Fallen can keep reviving themselves and gaining power and learning from their mistakes every time, coming back stronger. And this is a perfect example of why we need to stop these acts while they're occurring, because the Fallen are only going to get worse and worse. And as you were giving the quick story, as you were going over Aramis' story, I was really just noticing a pattern in that story, is that the darkness played Aramis. It really just sounded like that because she was hearing the whispers whenever she was in the prison with Hiraks, so that definitely confirms what I was saying earlier. So she knows about Hiraks for sure, and about the Fallen's ability to work with the Hive and the darkness. So she's just really been able to take everything that they've done over the past couple generations of Fallen and darkness history and really create that as the biggest threat towards humanity and the Traveler right now. Especially, could you, like, if she was successful in giving those darkness powers to her entire house, like, we're talking thousands of Dark Fallen Guardians.
Yeah. It would be bad. It would be really bad. And I'm still not 100% convinced that she is dead. When we turned everybody else into popsicles and did stuff, like, they shattered, they disappeared. But she is a frozen statue. And I believe it was mostly just because the darkness chose to abandon her in that moment. But that's not to say that she's not coming back. Like, she's still a statue. Sitting there.
She's still a statue, and this is definitely just going into the Bird's personal opinion of what he's really hoping is going to happen. Is I really hope that she learned from Hyrax's ability to have a ascended plane, that perhaps she has her own, and perhaps she's doing something other in the other dimension, and she'll come back resurrected later as a larger threat.
Yeah. Or even, to play off that a bit further, like, she could end up teaming up with Savathun. Like,
whoa.
Savathun is building the darkness. Savathun, and unfortunately, as we experienced with what was it? Yeah, when the final mission of Shadowkeep is you going into the pyramid and face off against Gaul, then you face off against the Fanatic again, and then
Mm-hmm.
it ends with you facing off against like a nightmare version of Crota, you know. But at least as I experienced them, they were still very much real. They still very much did damage. Uh,
Yes.
so I'm interested if she's just going to join that cabal of slain darkness nightmares that we have to continue to face off against. You know,
Mm, I can see that.
just a thought. That's again personal opinion. It's not officially tied to the lore. So if any of you come at us and say, "Hey, you were wrong," well, of course I was wrong. I'm an idiot.
Another pattern that I was noticing, another darkness pattern you could say, is I really felt like the darkness chose Aramis and tried to recognize her as the one of the possible leaders of her race, like you were saying, one of the few who could actually reunite her race. And if she were successful, then the darkness would have another army, just like the darkness is now speaking with us and also leading us to Europa. And we have also had confirmation that we are not the only ones that darkness is speaking with. So I'm kind of interested to see at some point will we get Darkness Cabal? Will Keitel come back as a wielder of the darkness, or will we see Gaul's return? His ship has also disappeared with the 4 planets that have just been plucked out of the solar system due to the darkness. It'd be very interesting to see
Did it?
how that comes around. Yes, it was in one of the lore books. It wasn't in the game, but
Oh,
the ship is missing as well.
I thought we just threw the ship into the sun, right? Wasn't that a thing?
Is
We threw
it?
something into the
We
sun
threw something into the sun. I'll have to see.
because it was crashing. It crashed into the tower.
Oh
And
no, no, that was the Star Destroyer. The what was it called?
oh, I thought that was the ship.
Yes. No, I was
I thought
talking
it was
about. I
both
was
the
talking.
Star Destroyer and the ship, but yeah,
Oh no, no, the
you're right.
Star Destroyer fell into our planet, and Gaul's ship is out there. He's just chilling with the darkness. He's having a little pre meeting about what's gonna happen.
Yeah. Or is it going to be? I think it's something that we talked about in our first episode.
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to be like I think it's Callus's daughter
Keitel,
that's trying to kill him?
Keitel.
Yeah, Keitel, Keitel. I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not good with the names as much as I am with the people and who they are. Uh, I I don't know. Like, there's no other notable Cabal that I know of at the moment. Granted, they could introduce some now. Like there were the Cabal sisters, like the Scion sisters that we faced off against.
Right. The Triumvirate
Three? The three
in the
seasons?
Season of Dawn.
Yes, I was like the one with the dial, the sundial.
Right.
That one.
Okay, so the Red War faction is still out there, still causing some drama, some chaos, but nothing that's really, they don't really have a pronounced leader that we know of.
Yeah.
The Red War
You're right.
legionaries were also mentioned in Sagira's lore story,
Yeah.
where they
Emily?
first came upon, yeah, in Emmelant, thank you, in Emmelant Part 2, um, where they were communing
Part
with Shivu
4, yeah.
Arath.
Yeah.
So I don't.
We got some exciting stuff to look forward to. I
Absolutely.
like Destiny's continue to get its hooks to me every year. Like by the end of an expansion year, I'm like, all right, I'm done. I swear, this year's the end. And then every year I play the expansion, I'm like, all right, cool, I'm back. Hi, I need to get everything and do everything and learn all the things because this is space opera. Star Wars was
Yes.
better.
That's exactly what's going on. That's exactly what's going on. For a moment, I just wanted to just take a moment and let the audience connect with who we are as Destiny players. And I wanted to ask you, how have you been spending your time in Destiny lately?
Lately, well, so as a guardian, I will admit, I was focused a lot more on the expansion content than I was the seasonal content at first. I really wasn't doing a lot of season of the hunt stuff, just because it hasn't been the most fun. You know, after doing after the last year of FOMO content related to the seasons, I just, have been coming back to the idea of grinding for fun, especially because the last season that we played was so long. I was tired of playing without new content for a while. So I dove into the expansion first, and I've been trying to complete all the stuff on Europa. I've done all my dead exos. I've got all my shards. Like I'm up to date with the penguins. If you've been trying to find those guys, like I've been doing pretty good with that. Obviously, it's Iron Banner the week that we are recording this. I have been running Iron Banner. Not fun, but it is what it is. But yeah, I've slowly started getting more into the season of the hunt stuff. Um, I've just been waiting for Uldren to do something, or the Crow. I'm so sorry, the Crow. I've been waiting for him to do something, and he's not doing anything that's super exciting yet. Um, but I think we're also starting to reach that point in the season where, uh, especially with the dawning, we'll start to see some stuff come about. You know.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah,
It would be
I'm
very
excited for
interesting to see if they
the
give if they
dawning. I'm gonna
continue
grind
to
that
give
stuff
us
out the
new
same way I
lore
do
with the
every year.
dawning.
I don't expect it, only because it's been 2020, and don't expect anything good this year. But I do think they have something planned for after the dawning. I really hope, anyways, that the dawning will exist and it will be not as rough a grind as it has been, or as some other events have been. I'm looking at you, Summer Games. uh, and hopefully it's just gonna be like a fun event where like everything's kind of put to the side, because that's also a time where for us as players, like I choose to spend that time with my family and with the people that are important to me over the holidays. So I still want to grind the game. I'm still going to grind the game, but I also have other stuff happening. What about you? How are you at in the game? Where are you standing? I saw that you were doing Iron Banner on stream the other day.
Yes, I've been spending a lot of time in Iron Banner this week. I used it to raise my secondary and my third character, which was surprisingly fast. I thought it would take me like all day, and I was,
Yeah.
1240 plus within, I would say, 2 hours on each character. I would say that this particular season of Iron Banner has been kind of, I don't know, it's kind of you either destroy the other team or you get destroyed. There is no middle ground. I
No
would
middle ground.
say perhaps one in every 10 matches you may get an actual enjoyable sweaty match where you're on par, but mostly
Yeah.
you're either washing or getting washed. That's not
Yeah.
necessarily a bad thing. If you want to hop in and level up your characters very quickly, Iron Banner is the way to do it.
It's the same
Um,
with Gambit.
yes, Gambit as well. I really just not get going to Gambit to get my weekly prime engram and powerful gear, and then I'm out. And that's sad. That's terrible to say because I was one of the biggest Gambit lovers of all time. I was in love with Gambit. And then Gambit Prime. Ooh, Gambit Prime was amazing. You can grind out 4 different sets of armor that give completely different perks and add a
Yeah.
completely different aspect to the game. That's amazing. Oh wait, we don't have that anymore. So
Yeah, we
I
really
don't
don't.
spend a lot of time in Gambit.
I
They could
can't
very easily get me
I
back.
can't
Just give
blame you.
me
I
a,
was so
a new
upset.
map or two.
Uh,
But
well, like they cut out so many of the maps. Understandable to an extent because they got rid of those planets, but they just didn't replace them with anything, and that's really where my upset was. Is I'm like, dude, like just replace it. Like just put something else in there. It's cool. It's fine. You've added the Cosmodrome back. You've added Europa. You can give us at least 2 maps to take, like, to make up for what you took out. But also, I just don't like the Gambit game mode anymore. It's not as much fun.
mm-hmm.
It is Gambit Prime without any of the fun, and
Yes.
the armor isn't that great. But yeah,
Yep.
Iron Banner's the same way. Iron Banner's been the exact same way. It's been that way for a while. Like, I I think I told you over. I told somebody over message. I was been playing the freelance Iron Banner, which is I think this is like the first time that I really saw that. For players that are a party of one to just go in and kind of like do Iron Banner with a whole bunch of solo queuers and not have to worry about facing off against a team.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and that's just worse. So yeah, like it sucks. Like Iron Banner used to be one of my favorite things because power level actually matters and your artifact doesn't, and it really is about outplaying other players. But these days it's just so much of an if then, like, and I always feel like I'm like, dude, it's not even me. Like, I'm playing decent. I don't know what's happening,
Right.
but we're getting stomped, and this is weird.
Yeah.
No.
Very.
Past that, how have you been doing with Season of Hunt?
Season of the Hunt, I'm doing pretty good. I'm really enjoying all of the Europa content. I enjoy the lost sectors, the 1250 and the 1280. Those are fun to grind over and over again. I haven't gotten any of the exotics to drop, but hey, that's just my RNG. But
Yeah.
as far as Season of the Hunt itself, I haven't really done too much. Again, I really just do that for my weekly Powerful or Pinnacle. But
Yeah.
I just am waiting for more variety or just something else to add to the season. Right now, we only have the 4 bosses, and sure, you can add different mods, which lets you choose what type of weapon you may get and what type of rolls that it could give you. Sure, that helps if you're grinding for a specific weapon or perk, but if you're not, then there's really no reason for you to keep doing it over and over. As you said, I'm really waiting for them to give Crow something to do, please. But the season's not over yet.
Like,
We'll see. I think they're, as we've seen in previous seasons, they tend to block off even seasonal content by, maybe a few weeks. So I feel like in January, probably, we'll get another block of content. Hopefully, because
yeah.
have we even killed the main, what is it, the war,
The
the
Wraithborn?
Wrathborn. We haven't even
Yeah.
killed the original one yet, if I'm correct, right?
I don't think so. We've been going up against like what HDK1 and all these other guys. I don't think we have yet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird because like in seasons past, it has been like you very much have weekly content where every week you would go and talk to Aramis and get some new lore story about blah blah blah. And we're seeing a mix of two things, unfortunately, with this season. Like, if we can step back and see it from a dev cycle or a dev's perspective, they obviously no one has been able to really uh, handle the effects of the coronavirus and the rapid shift to working from home. So a lot of things are kind of lacking in that areas, but we're also kind of seeing what Bungie thinks the season should look like without as much FOMO. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it very much felt for the last year that they were weaponizing this fear of missing out of like, you have to be getting on this week or else you're missing out on X, Y, and Z. And it led to a lot of players being burnt out really quickly because you would just grind out all the stuff and then you had nothing else to do. So you just
That's
stopped
right.
playing. And it's just not fun. So we're starting to see what this new approach to the seasons is going to look like. But I don't know if I'm a fan or not yet. It's gonna take a couple seasons until I can really make I think the best decision, especially because like who knows, by this time next year they could be back in and doing whatever. So I don't know. We'll see.
That's right.
Unfortunately, we'll see. It's been a weird year, and unfortunately, all the video games that are coming out are suffering for it. Like no one's escaped unscathed.
Unfortunately
So,
not. Unfortunately not. There's a big one just came out on the market. We'll leave it unnamed for now, but if you know, you know. It's not doing
yeah.
too hot right now. Um,
No, it is not.
no. But yeah, I think you're exactly right. We will wait and see what happens. I kind of expected this, and I was even telling some of my friends who were saying as we were coming up on Beyond Light, like, oh, we're gonna lose so much content, and we're not gonna have anything to, like. I I kind of called that in the beginning of this particular season, year 4, where we're essentially starting over. I knew that we were going to have less content and less to do
Yeah.
initially, but as long as they continue previous patterns of adding on more and more content as the seasons go along, I'm okay with that. Even with the current season, which, as I just said, I'm just kind of 50-50 on right now. If they continue to expand, at least give me a little bit more story of how Shifu Arath is introducing herself into the story. What are the direct repercussions going to be? Are we even going to, you know, interact with her directly, or is this just a tease and we'll just do it again a couple seasons down. But as long as they continue to expand, I'll be happy. As long as they give us more to talk about in these podcasts, I'll be happy.
Heck yeah. And I mean, again, to defend the devs, like a lot of that is probably a purposeful reason for the first season after a major expansion release. Like, you don't want to be forcing people to buy their time between like devouring the expansion, which we were given a week for before the season officially started, and then like the contents of the season. Like, even last year, what was that? The Season of Dawn? Was that the first season of Shadowkeep?
It was Season of Dawn was the second one. It was
Season of Arrivals was the last one. Whatever. The season
the Vex season.
Yeah,
on the moon.
The Vex season, when we were just traveling around everywhere, and there was the Vex offensives that were really cool that we don't get to do anymore.
Oh yeah. They should put those back in the mix and rotate them. I had a lot of fun.
So that was a very light. Oh, I think so, because no one goes to the moon anymore. Altars of Sorrow, please.
True.
So, like, in that season, that was very light as well. Like, that was the only new game mechanic that they added. Was the Vex offensive and the subsequent stuff that we could do, but that was it, and it's okay. Like, as long as you promise me more story this time and like try to make some of the stuff play out in game in relation to me having to read about how this happened on a Bungie blog post, like, I'm all for it. Like, I love the lore of this game, but I also want to experience more of it as a player, so I'll read all this stuff, obviously, knowing everything about Aramis and the Dark Council and stuff. I'll read it if you give it to me, but I also want to see it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So,
absolutely.
I think that speaks to both of us, though.
That actually does call out a point. The one thing I have noticed that I am seeing less of on Europa that we did start to see, even with the launch of D2, is just items around the map infused with lore, scannables. I really haven't found that many on Europa. You really get a little bit of lore in the game. Of course, you get some lore in the weapons, but there's not really, you can't really go into a certain building and say, hey, this was Clovis Bray used this building for X, Y, and Z, and it's important to the lore because of ABC. Hey, this is Europa. The storms on Europa are cool. I mean, maybe that's what they traded scannables for the weather system.
Maybe, because the scannables are gone from a lot of places too. All of the scannable objects are gone from the tower, so you can't scan anything in the tower anymore. Mm-hmm. There's a lot that's been taken out of the game, lore wise. But again, my hope is that it's just because they're taking it out so that it's not something that we have to scan and read, it's something that we can experience.
Right.
It would have been so easy for the conversations between the Exo Stranger and Anna that we witnessed, like, with our eyes. It would have been so easy to have that as being like, you go up, you talk to the Exo Stranger in this little box to the side that's just text.
Right.
So if that's the kind of stuff they're going to invest in, like, that's the kind of stuff that I'm here for. Like, show it to me, let me be a part of it, even if it's just a fly on the wall. Like, I'm obsessed.
Absolutely. So, having those conversations in game really made me feel great.
Excited. Yeah, me too, man. Me too.
Okay, I think that about wraps up today's episode. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to episode 3. We're going to continue chugging along with episode 4 coming out in 2 weeks. Episode 4 will be the last episode of 2020, so do not miss that one.
We might talk a little bit about the Dawning. Who knows? It'll be fresh on everyone's mind, so we might talk about the Dawning and why it's important. We might not, because it's the Dawning, and we've been doing this for 7 years. I don't know yet. I don't know how I feel. But we will have an episode for you guys, the last episode of 2020, as Craig mentioned. And hopefully that'll be the episode that we also celebrate the beginning of 2021 and what I assume will be the best year of all the recent years. So
crossplay coming 2021. Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
So, Craig, if they were going to find you, where would they find?
They would find me at twitch.tv/Birduup. The Bird is finally putting up a schedule he's going to stick by. Check out the Birduup's Instagram to see that, dates and times, when and where to find me. We're going to have Spider Mondays if you're into Miles Morales. We're not all Destiny all the time. How about you, sir?
Nice, man.
I heard you can be found where?
Uh,
Where do you,
I can be found on twitch.tv/Tweeziix. It's spelled XTweeziix. Don't ask about the X's, please. It was cool in college once. I stream. I typically stream late night California time. Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays. Mostly a lot of Destiny is what I would choose to stream. If I play anything else, it is a current game that everybody else in the world is playing right now, but I don't want to contribute to the streaming of it. So, yeah, mostly Destiny for now. I might play other games that are smaller and dumber and free, but yeah, it's I'm mostly a Destiny guy. That's mostly what I do. So, that's where you can
Destiny
find
will
me.
always have our hearts.
Yeah, it's my number one addiction, you know. But yeah. All right, man. It's been a great episode. I look forward to speaking with you again next week. Same time, same place.
Yes, sir. Same time, same place. Caw.